There are some Pokemon who are deemed to be forgotten, mostly just because they do nothing special, or have a gimmick that really isn't very good. And I don't think that's fair. Every Pokemon deserves a chance to do something. And even something like basic pure water type fish number 7. So let's change that and give some forgotten Pokemon brand new abilities to help them stand out more, and perhaps might be more remembered. Corsola may not be the most forgotten Pokemon, because, I mean, it did get a new form and a new evolution, but that did make the regular Johtonian Corsola much more forgotten, because why wouldn't you use the one that has a better defensive profile and can hold the Eviolite and just kind of do Corsola's job better? So, we're obviously not going to try and make regular Corsola more defensive. Corsola's little branches shed and regrow constantly, so let's use those branches to power up some of its attacks. Specifically, the multi-hit attacks, Rock Blast, Icicle Spear, Spike Cannon. These attacks now deal double their base damage, but cause Corsola to take double damage until its next attack, because it's shed off the little branches, it's got less defense, because there's just less Corsola. A similar kind of mechanic to Glaive Rush, Excalibur's signature move, except it deals up to base 250 if you hit all 5 attacks with some of the attacks. It's a shame that that is coming from a base 55 attack and low speed. Loaded Dice Corsola will probably go crazy though. I tried to get one Pokemon from each generation, and obviously much easier to remember the newer Pokemon, but I think I got a good one from Alola. Shiinotic is a Pokemon that learns Spore. That's about it. That's about all Shiinotic is. Okay, to be fair to it, Shiinotic was introduced as the only Pokemon to learn Strength Sap, but then Vileplume was given it in the next game, not even next generation, in Ultra Sun and Moon. And its stats are pretty bad, so you wouldn't really pick it over Vileplume if I'm going to be honest. But let's go even further on Shiinotic's training abilities, where its dex says it siphons vitality through the tips of its arms. So let's make it actually do that. Every single contact move that Shiinotic uses will now also act as a strength sap. So now it deals damage, and it lowers your attack, and it heals itself, because I mean, sounds crazy, but then they introduce Magic Gotcha, you know, spread Giga Drain that also burns. So how strong is it really? Also, Shiinotic is running a base 45 attack, you know, the same as Pokemon like Clefairy and Jigglypuff. And it also gets a grand total of 6 contact moves, so there's not really much diversity there either. But you're not really going to complain about getting an attack drop and a heal whilst doing chip damage as well, like it's just better strength sap at that point. Sunflora is one of the worst Pokemon. Now you know that because if you play random battles on Showdown, Sunflora is part of the exclusive club of level 100 Pokemon in net, alongside the greats like Luvdisc. But honestly though, it is just kind of a sunflower, and it's got legs and arms. That's about it. So we'll go over the one thing that the dex actually says about it. It moves hectically in the sun. So we're going to give it a new ability for in the sun, you know, just like its solar power and its chlorophyll, in that its stats get boosted in the sun. Its special attack, its attack, and its speed all get doubled when it's in the sun. That's pretty strong. That's when you're in the sun, you get Sword Stance, Nasty Plot, and Agility all at once. Maybe a little bit too strong, even though it is on Sunflora, so we are going to give it a downside. In that, it has frantic movement, not necessarily being very controlled. So Sunflora doesn't actually choose its attack, it will just randomly use one of its attacks at a random target. You could always just run a Sunflora that only knows one move, but let's be honest, even with double stats, Sunflora is still not very good, so it's probably not worthwhile to literally just go, we're only going to have Leaf Storm on this, so I always use Leaf Storm with my doubled stats. Be funny, but probably still not very good. But then again, it's Sunflora, so Hey, do you like Pokemon? I'm gonna guess you do, because you're watching a video about Pokemon. Don't worry, I like Pokemon too. And I know a cool community that also likes Pokemon. And other things. You should check it out by looking down in the description. Okay, thanks, bye. Lumineon is a water type. Pure water type. It's got generic stats. It's a shame that all this is wasted on such a cool idea and a design for a Pokemon. Lumineon's glowing fins are its main point, right? So let's make them actually useful and do something in battle. Well, as useful as Lumineon's stats can allow it to be. It uses the lights from its fins to attract prey for food, but it also ends up attracting all of the vicious fish that come to try and get it as well. Sounds just like a redirection attack. Lumineon's new dazzling fins give it redirection whenever it uses a light-based move. Now, light-based moves don't exist, but they did just add wind and sharp moves in Scarlet and Violet, and sound-based is also already a subcategory alongside bullet and all that kind of stuff, so it's not out of the realm possibility. For Lumineon, it would be moves like Dazzling Gleam, Confuse Ray, Aurora Beam that it specifically learns. Lumineon isn't super fast, it doesn't quite hit base 100, but it's still a pretty fast Pokemon, so getting chip damage and redirection is pretty good, although of course it's not priority redirection. And if I'm honest, Storm Drain is still a very good ability, and would probably be more effective as a redirector than trying to get Lumineon to move first. Huntail certainly is a Pokemon. It once again falls into being basic pure water type, but this time it's a physical attacker, so it's even worse because it's got less attacks it can use. The only saving grace for Huntail is that it gets Shell Smash by proxy because it evolves from Clampo, which had a shell, but it's still pretty overshadowed by funny Clampo with the item using Shell Smash. And outside of battles, Huntail is just a big fish. It uses its tail to lure in other Pokemon because it looks like a little fish, kinda like a lantern fish. So we're going to try and bring that into the battle. Before using any biting move, Lantern will try to lure in its opponent. Kind of like a focus punch kind of thing, where it will say that it's going to prepare the attack, so it's preparing to lure its opponent in. If any Pokemon targets Huntail, the moment they go to attack, Huntail will immediately hit with its bite before it gets hit. So as soon as a Pokemon tries to target the Huntail, Huntail hits them back with whatever biting move it chose. It's got a relatively low speed stat, but pretty high attack, so it allows Huntail to get around its speed, whilst also not bringing a downside to its attack where something like Sucker Punch does, where sometimes it won't work because they didn't actually target you in attack. However, it does mean in doubles you might target the wrong Pokemon. Say you targeted a slower Pokemon, you start to, you press your crunch, you target it at a slower Pokemon, but then the faster one targets your Huntail first, so it gets redirected and immediately hits them. Not like a super bad downside, but still a downside nonetheless. Originally I was thinking Huntail deals double damage if its opponent moves first, but that's just kind of a stronger analytic, and analytic's already pretty strong. And the instant attack kind of allows Huntail to get around one of its downsides, rather than simply just being here's bonus damage for being slow. There are two electric dogs. I would have to argue that Boltund is the more memorable electric dog though. Not for a good reason, but simply because it is just a dog. Like it literally goes woof and everything. It's just a dog. But Manectric, that's like a funny shaped dog. And looking at its dex entries, it's a funny shaped dog that runs fast and uses electricity. How creative. We're going to utilise the move Charge with this, kind of like how Bellybot decided to take Charge and put it in an ability, but the activation condition is going to be different to Electromorphosis. We're going to take a bit of the Harvest ability. At the start of each turn, Manectric has a 50% chance to trigger the effect of Charge, not the special defense boost, but just the double damage to next electric type attack. But the Harvest can be buffed by the sun, I hear you cry. Well, we have just the effect to do that for electricity. Electric terrain. There's a lot more electricity to charge up on when it's all over the floor, right? Because Charge already isn't that good, that's why Electromorphs exists, right? Because it's okay, but why would you use something to double the damage of your next move when you could just use that move twice? Of course not, like, doubling your stats, because then you get to whatever, but it's not really something that's worthwhile just running for the pure double damage, but if you're going to get it for free, I mean, who's going to complain? I'm not going to complain that I can do double damage for the downside of nothing, right? Whenever a new mechanic is added to the game, they always add a Pokemon to show that off, like Cherrim with its form changing in Generation 4, and Plusle and Minun when double bows are introduced. Sawsbuck got a completely useless mechanic, changing its looks dependent on the current season, which wasn't actually a season, it was the current month. It's purely aesthetic, which, I mean, they look cool, but Sawsbuck can't even change its forms. Let's make these forms actually differ in battle, changing its form and type depending on the weather, seeing as you can actually change the weather in battle, unlike the time of year. Its base form is Spring, maintaining the normal grass typing. Sunny weather turns it into Summer Sawsbuck, which is now a fire grass type. Rain making it Autumn Sawsbuck, which is ghost grass, and snow making it Winter as an ice grass type. Summer form is obviously in the sun because it is warm in summer and it is sunny normally. Same goes for winter, it snows in winter and is cold, so it's an ice type. Autumn's a little harder because what weather do we have left that kind of matches autumn? Definitely not sandstorm, so it kind of just has to be rain, right? Originally I was going to go with ground grass because leaf fall to ground, but then it's hindered by the weather because the water moves are boosted, which the ground type is weak to. So I went with ghost grass because autumn is when all the plants and the leaves start to die and fall off, you know, hence the ghost typing. I'm not really 100% that the ghost typing is the best typing, but I can't find a good argument for another one, so we're just going to stick with that one, I suppose. It allows the Sawsbuck forms to, you know, actually play differently, and Sawsbuck would probably also get a move similar to like Ivy Cudgel or even Hornleech might change to match its secondary typing now, unless it's its main type where it's just a grass type move. So Sawsbuck actually gets some kind of stab that isn't Weather Ball because Sawsbuck is a physical attacker, and it wouldn't get stab on it in its autumn form specifically. Gen 8 gave almost all their Pokemon something, being it a new move or new ability or some quirky way to evolve. I'm sure everyone remembers Rinrigus, because that is a very, very silly way to evolve a Pokemon, and I don't know how you're supposed to find it out without the internet. The ones that weren't given anything though are kind of forgettable, which I took Orbeetle as an example, and then when researching was reminded that it was given a Gmax form, so it actually was given something, and I still didn't remember it, so that tells you about as much as you need to know. I doubt Gigantamax is going to come back anytime soon, so let's take the effect of its exclusive move, Gmax Gravitas. It's not just going to activate Gravity on switching though, because that's not very unique, and Orbeetle is very, very smart, so it would know just setting up Gravity on switching isn't always a good thing to do. Instead, if a move misses, Orbeetle triggers its optimal timing and activates Gravity, and also causes that move to go again, which is more so for a mechanical level thing, because otherwise it would get very confusing. Obviously, smart bug, it knows we're going to activate Gravity when I need it, just in case they're running Stone Edge and I activate Gravity and I get absolutely smacked. Like, mechanically, it would be kind of a, I press Hydro Pump, I miss Hydro Pump, Orbeetle goes, oh no, he missed Hydro Pump, activate Gravity, make him Hydro Pump again, although you technically don't Hydro Pump again. It's just kind of, oh, just before the attack missed, he triggered Gravity, and now the attack hit, look at that, what a smart bug. It gets very confusing, but there are some things like this where there's lots of intricacies, and I'm not actually putting it in the game, so I'm not going to go through all of them, because this would probably break a lot of things in a turn-based game. But once it activates once, it can't activate again, because that would be kind of busted, and you'd essentially get to roll the accuracy check on your move twice every time you miss, which is kind of busted. So instead it's more of like a Intrepid Sword activation where it only happens once. We don't want to make these Pokemon busted. Just kinda better than whatever Orbeetle gets as abilities now, I don't even know. Gen 1 Pokemon are all pretty memorable, but you know who isn't memorable? Fearow. It's a bird, but it's not cool like Pidgeot, and it can fly, so it's not like Doduo, which is a flying type that can't fly, and it has an evolution line, so it's not quite like Farfetch when it was in Kanto. It's just kind of Pidgeot-like, until you get to evolve your Pidgeotto, and then you don't really need Fearow anymore. Its dex entries all like to mention how it deftly moves its extended and thin beak to pluck prey. I mean, it literally mentions a move by name. So we're going to give Fearow priority on a subset of moves, those being the moves that steal or remove an item. So yeah, for Fearow it is literally 2 moves in Pluck and Thief, but it gives Fearow a good option for priority stab that can steal berries, or you get immediate theft of strong items from Pokemon that might really need them to actually be a lot better, you know, immediately stealing a Choice Band or a Life Orb and getting to use it yourself if you're not holding something. At least it makes it play a little different to physical flying type that doesn't really get good moves, but it does get Drill Run, so you get a ground type attack. But that's about all Fearow has going for it at the moment, so a little better than that, I would say. X and Y added the least amount of Pokemon total, so just in terms of numbers you're more likely to remember them. So I kind of went more of a Pokemon I thought could be interesting and we haven't seen on the Switch, but now obviously with Z2A I think a lot more people are going to be thinking more about this Pokemon, so it may not fit on this video all too well. Furfrou is once again a dog. But it's a dog that gets funny haircuts this time, and if you want to get all the haircuts, it's really hard to do because you have to get them through regional in Pokemon Go, and it took me so long to get them because people specifically wanted Japanese Blood Moon Ursaluna, and I had to play through so much of the game again. The haircuts do absolutely nothing though, and they get removed if you do so much as put Furfrou in a box or wait like a certain amount of time. Pretty useless, honestly. You might get like one haircut and go, oh that's cool, and then never do it again. So, let's fix that. Furfrou's trims are now elemental, matching each of its haircuts to a specific typing. Furfrou will now resist attacks of that typing, giving it, you know, 1 new resistance on top of its normal typing. So, rather than adding the new typing to it and giving it more weaknesses, or go, you know, you also get this type on top, it just makes Furfrou have a better defensive profile, and that's it. We'll also keep a little from its base fur coat as well though, but only boosting its defense by 50% instead of doubling it. So you can at least get the choice of, I'm going to use base Furfrou with its scruffy fur but double defenses, or I'm going to get this specific trim so I can resist this specific attack because maybe your team has a big weakness to this type. Or maybe you're playing casually and you're going to the Ice type gym, so you're going to get your Furfrou to resist Ice types, because why wouldn't you just add a resistance to Ice type? It kind of makes you want to go back to Furfrou's haircuts a bit more, I would think, if they were more convenient, I suppose. Backtracking and all that wouldn't be very fun, but it at least gives you incentive to use them. And lastly for the video, and of all the generations actually, it's kind of hard to forget the most recent generation's Pokemon. I mean, they're the most recent, right? But following on from the generation before it, the regional bug sure is a forgettable Pokemon. Spidops really looks like it should evolve again, but it just doesn't. It just looks like it's in an awkward stage 1 part, you know, kind of like how your middle starters are all a bit awkward and then they evolve and it's like, ah, that's what it was supposed to be. But they just didn't give it one. It's a cool concept as well. It's a secret agent spider. And I know just what can help out this bug, especially for you singles players out there, because I know how much you guys love your entry hazards. Spidops enters the battle silently, like a secret agent coming down from the sky. Thus, it doesn't trigger any entry effects or hazards. It also works the other way around, not triggering something like Stakeout or Pursuit if it ever returns, and let Spidops switch out even when it's trapped. Being a bug type, Spidops does not like Stealth Rocks, and even just being immune to the Stealth Rocks would probably make it a bit more useful than whatever its current abilities are. I mean, it at least allows it to change its item from heavy duty boots to something else. Not that it would probably make Spidops good. I mean, I don't really know how to make Spidops good without, you know, giving it a massive stat boost, perhaps changing its design a little, giving it some new moves, and, you know, just like maybe an evolution would have, if they did that, but we got stuck with whatever this guy is. I really wish I had an evolution, if you can't tell. And that was new abilities for some Pokemon that I think are much more forgettable, that you may not have remembered. These are much more geared towards showing off the lore and the designs behind these Pokemon, because, let's be honest, none of them are really that good, and I'm not really going to be able to give them something good without going, you get a massive stat boost, and also this weather only boosts you and it can't be removed, and also you have all the choice items at once, but you can use any move you want, because, or, you know, you just have 3 abilities and 4 held items, because we're not too far off from that now either, are we? I know there's going to be many, many more forgotten Pokemon, because I probably forgot them, and that's why they're not in the video. I mean, you know, I even went and asked the Discord such a silly question, like, what forgettable Pokemon can you remember? Like, you know, forgettable, remember, not quite work like that. It's not going to stop me from asking it again though. What forgettable Pokemon do you remember? What forgettable Pokemon do you have maybe some cool abilities for, some cool ideas, or just something that you'd like to see something for? I do go through and read all the comments, and I love seeing all the ideas that people have. It's all so creative, and it's very fun to read through them. But with all that said, I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, or night, or evening, or morning, whatever it is when you're watching this video.